Hi everyone, my name's Johnny Stokoe. Welcome back to part 2 of our Ask the Expert series. I'm joined today by some of my colleagues across the business to talk about how to mine untapped talent pools, the right people for the right job at the right time. So without further ado, I wanted to introduce some of my colleagues. Michelle, would you like to take it away?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I am Michelle Duong. I'm the Senior Director for Adecco Search, which is a division of Adecco that mainly focuses on direct hire placements. And I'm currently here in Southern California.
Hey, nice to meet you, Michelle. Good talking to you, and Johnny. Good. Thanks for being here, for having us here today. My name is Holmes, Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Social Responsibility for the Adecco Group North America. I'm here in Great Atlanta, Georgia, and glad to be a part of the conversation.
Hey, Bridges, Michelle, Johnny, good to see everybody today. My name is Justin Bacon. I'm a vice president with Adecco. I'm head of our professional services, finance, and insurance division, and I'm here in sunny New England today.
And as always, I'm your moderator, Johnny Stokoe, and I run sales, marketing, and business intelligence for the Adecco region and based out of Atlanta, Georgia. So digging straight in, this is a really important topic for us as a recruitment business, but it's also something that our customers and our consumers are talking about in the open market too. The responsibility that corporations have and that companies have to create the right employer value proposition to entice candidates out of a labor participation market that is a little bit suppressed at the moment, and how to find the right talent in the market, not just the talent on the market. So I'm really excited to have this team with me today who come with some very unique perspectives, experience, and also examples of how Adecco is doing this, but also how our customers are doing this today. So I really want to kind of start off with a very open approach, which is to talk a little bit about why recruitment needs to do something different at the moment in the market. So Bridget, I'd like to start with you around societal development. So what's been happening in society that companies have had to focus on in order to adapt and enhance their recruitment strategies?
Yeah, that's a good question, Johnny. And I love this topic around how do we mine untapped talent pools. And I think I will start very much by saying my approach to inclusion in the workplace and in terms of how we operate, how we show up every day, which also includes our recruitment processes, is very practical. And when you look at the industry, it's really two things that really, for me, really drives these changes. One is job seekers. So people want to work for companies that are doing more than just checking the box, doing more than just doing things that are compliant based, and it feels very impersonal. But they also want to work for an organization that are giving back to the societies and the communities in which they serve, right? So there's a bigger purpose, there's a bigger value proposition in terms of why they want to be there. So is there employee engagement opportunities to volunteer, to give back to nonprofit organizations where it really brings to life those values that we talk about, right? So it's, access to education, access to career opportunities. Am I going to have an opportunity to advance myself in my career? And do I see myself in that organization, right? So if I'm looking at your website, do I see people that look like me in that organization? If I don't, then maybe it's going to give me some pause of whether or not that organization really fits me and my values. If it does, then I'm going to pursue those opportunities, start digging into my LinkedIn profiles and my network and try to understand what could be, some really good opportunities for me to pursue there. The other side of that coin is businesses. So think about this, the industry. Businesses want to do business with other companies and organizations that also share these same values. And so you can look at initiatives around supplier diversity, where at one point, and I would say, from my experiences at one point, I would say back probably before 2019 and going into the pandemic, company supply diversity programs are really about what are you spending? What kind of monies are you spending with diversity or minority owned organizations? And that was it. But now you got the entrance of major incidences that's happened in our society around George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, some of those societal incidences that's plagued us. Companies don't want to be caught with being implicit by not doing anything. And so changing your recruitment process is changing how you approach attracting the right talent is very important, because what's happened is now those supply diversity programs are no longer just asking about the dollar spent. They're also asking, so now we want to talk more about what are you doing internally? What is your strategy? How are you going beyond just the hiring piece? So once people onboard into your organization, what are you doing to promote that talent? What are you doing to cultivate and develop that talent long term? So in a short kind of summary, it's both the job seeker and it's the industry that's driving a lot of these need for recruitment changes.
I think that's a really interesting point, that people are looking at a company to stand for more in the societal change that we've experienced over the last few years. And companies need to respond in order to fulfill that gap and commitment that they should be making to the people who work for them and with them. So, Michelle, coming to you on this, why do you think companies find it so difficult to change their recruitment process? It seems like kind of common sense. So what are the challenges that stand in the way of companies in this situation?
I think the biggest challenge for us, especially in the direct hire placement space, the cycle is a little longer for sure. And as society is adjusting to rebounding back from COVID and the pandemic with the unemployment rate being so low, I think a lot of the biggest challenge would be, how do we have a better outreach? And how do we retrain our internal staff to make sure that we're able to adjust to this whole remote setting? Video interviewings and being able to connect with people. And the internal recruiters are having that disconnect, I would say. That would be the biggest challenge, I say, from a technology perspective. How do we connect with the individuals as we are recruiting them?
I think that practical example of kind of making yourself visible and making yourself an employer that people want to apply to, while simultaneously connecting with them where they are as candidates, is very, very important. Justin, do you have any ideas or practical examples of kind of how how companies are changing their recruitment processes?
Yeah, Johnny. So, I've worked with companies large and small over the past 15 years, in helping them find the talent that they need. And I got to tell you, over the past probably 18 months to 2 years, that has changed more in that period of time than it did in the previous 13 years combined. And so we're seeing a couple of things. We're seeing a different workforce where we have people who have recently retired looking to return. We have mothers who are looking to return to the workforce. But at the same time, and Johnny, you touched on this, we have a new generation who is looking for an opportunity where in the old days it may have been just about money. And now it's about the organization, the culture, and if it's the right fit for them long term. And so I think companies are starting to see that and starting to see that data and analyze the various surveys that are out there and realizing, hey, it may be a little bit expensive in the beginning, but it's going to be more efficient and cost effective in the long run to change how we've been hiring and how we move forward in our hiring practices.
Yeah, and I'd like to just jump in a little bit more too. I mean, I don't know. I think all of us here, we might have come from some of the similar paths in our careers. But listen, I've served as a recruiter on the staffing side as well as a recruiter on the talent acquisition side. So I've been on both sides of the coin, both corporate and staffing. And what I can tell you is that what tends to be pretty similar is that companies that have always done things a certain way, they were probably pretty successful in doing those things, right? I remember back in the day where, it's you got a business card, you're at a bar, you're hanging out with your friends, you're passing out cards, and that's kind of that referral process of bringing talent in. And there really wasn't a lot of strategy around how we're going to cultivate talent. And so nowadays, what candidates are looking for, they want to feel like you are searching for them in particular. They don't want to feel like just another number. So the best candidates, which I've learned in my career, you got to put some intentionality around it, right? So that may include some specific partnerships that we may have to engage in. We may have to tap into some other organizations and associations that cultivate certain populations, whether it's Black and brown talent in automotive or in the arts industries like journalism or accounting, things of that nature. Whereas before, it seemed to be easier. You stick a job posting up on the old school job boards, and you typically would got some good recruiters. I mean, some good candidates. Nowadays is not the case. You have to be a lot more deliberate about your actions. And I think what's hard for companies to do is to realize, in order to do that, it's going to take some vision. It's going to take some resources and some investment. and really being able to see it's not just about what I need, what empty seats we need to fill today, but thinking long term down the line of how are we going to grow this organization and what type of talent that we need to support that future growth.
Yeah, Bridges, it really is about going to where the candidates are now more than ever, right?
Yeah.
We all know there are more available jobs out there than there are available candidates. And so that competition for that available workforce is fierce. And so we all know about the various social media platforms that are being utilized, and we're seeing that more and more than we ever have. But we also see examples and situations where we're advising companies to literally go to where the candidates are, whether that's a mobile recruitment platform with a physical van or a physical car to go to where the candidates are, or a number of other avenues. It really is about going to where the candidates are versus in the past, you could kind of sit back and wait for the candidates to come to you. That's no longer the case.
Yeah. And I would say too, it's also about, I think about you got, different levels, right? So you have those professional needs that we need some seasoned, skilled talent right now. But when I think about the future talent, like you mentioned about next generation talent, I think about internship programs and other experiences that we can create, to attract different populations of people. Now, it reminds me of a recent scenario where we had an opportunity to work with one of our clients around developing an internship program. And they wanted to look at, well, how do we diversify? We realized we need to diversify some of our internal functional areas. So like, R&D, marketing and communications, accounting and finance, technology, analytics, some of these, software engineering, some of these really niche skilled areas. And they realized they had a gap, currently have a gap in diverse talent. So we talked about an internship and helping them create a model for how do you create an internship opportunity, because that involves the community. So it involves some organizations and associations that we talked about that cultivate that diverse population of talent. We also talked about aligning with the right academic institutions that also cultivate that, right? So you're bringing that wholeness together. And those institutions don't have to be four-year colleges and universities. They don't have to be the elite of the elite, right? They can be two-year colleges and schools where you may try to survey, if you have a manufacturing portion of your business, you may need some technicians, you may need some mechanics, you may need some other workers that may not fit that four-year college degree traditional requirement. And so being very intentional about that gives us an opportunity to widen that funnel of talent just a bit more. And then the last part is, it's the internal piece, right? What level of commitment are you willing to dedicate to this whole process, right? So HR has to be involved. Our business leaders that run P&Ls, that run revenue generating portions of our business, they have to have skin in the game. If they don't, then it's going to feel like an HR driven, set of processes. And always, when it seems like that, they pick and choose what they want to get involved in. And then, of course, you got to have leadership buy-in right from the very top to drive all this. So just some thoughts.
I think those are wonderful thoughts, and I think that we're touching on a lot of the things around how to run an inclusive recruitment process. Thinking about more junior candidates, internships, diverse ways of sourcing, looking at the market, etc. You touched on it here, Bridges, around internal commitment. Michelle, coming to you, you talked about it before for direct hire, where someone is really taking a job on a more an inclusive basis. It's a more involved process than someone who might just be looking for a temporary gig for a few months. They're looking at the company in a lot more depth. Can you give an example of where you've run an inclusive recruitment campaign, particularly looking at marginalized communities for a customer?
Yes. So we obviously, the market is very tough to find the right candidate. So an inclusive process, we've seen an increase in, I would say, bulk hiring, where roles of engineers, you wouldn't have requests of 30 to 50 engineers at a time. It used to be 10 to 20 at most. And so in those processes, it's really important, how do we make it an inclusive campaign? So we educate our clients on, in order for you to fill these roles, you need to be able to understand, how are you going to identify underqualified candidates, qualified candidates, and overqualified candidates? And when you're trying to place candidates that are underqualified, how do you attract them to the opportunity? And it's really explaining to them, like, as an organization, if you're able to share with the potential candidate the growth trajectory of the role, any succession plans that the organization can display, you'll be able to attract those underqualified individuals. And then we touched a little bit about returning employees to the market that have retired. So that means you're typically overqualified. So what is your value proposition coming back into the market? So it's really, from an inclusive campaign, is being able to work as a partner with some of the clients that we have that have bulk hiring, and understanding what they're facing as they're recruiting in this market right now. And another piece of it was really assisting them with compensation, aligning ourselves well from a compensation perspective. And then another piece would be benefits. It's critical now with the millennials. They are really looking for extra PTO, flexibility with their work environment, and much higher compensation expectations. So just making sure that we are able to help our clients in these inclusive campaigns that they have to be successful, to find all the right talent to bring to the table.
So coming to you on that, Justin, Michelle touched on something interesting there, which is this idea that we want to attract and source and find candidates who might have previously felt like this wasn't the role for them, perhaps not something that they could apply to, don't have all the qualifications or skill criteria, perhaps even didn't apply because they don't feel like the role is a possibility for them. At Adecco, we obviously have multiple ways that we go and source in a market, grassroots, social media, you touched on before. Can you give some examples of how we do this in a temporary community, in a local community, to bring out some of these marginalized populations?
Absolutely. So, we've already talked about how there are more open opportunities available than there are candidates, but that doesn't always necessarily mean that those candidates aren't interested in those opportunities. And so it really is about closing what could be a skills gap, or just an experience gap, right? And so what we do, we partner with different organizations around the country, focusing on upskilling and reskilling. And that is, I'll give you a couple of examples. Whether it's a manufacturing organization that might need forklift drivers, and somebody maybe only has warehouse experience assembling on a line, we partner with organizations in local schools and communities to get those individuals that experience, that forklift experience, so that they then are qualified for that role and can move into it. Same thing with a large client of ours that has a very large international call center, where they needed a certain skill set for that call center. We had a large pool of candidates that didn't necessarily have that skill set that particular point in time, but we worked again with local organizations and different partners throughout the U.S. to train them, upskill, reskill, and help them get that skill set, so that then they were qualified for those open positions.
I think that's really cool. It helps, when we're in a situation that we can make these roles seem like they are like they have opportunity associated with them, but also that it gives the candidate a chance to feel like they have a chance to get the job. And I think that's a really big thing in the market that we see, is candidates self-selecting out before even applying. So I want to switch gears a little bit into how Adecco can help our customers. And Bridges, I'm going to come to you on this one. We've talked a little bit about the use of data and technology. We talked a little bit about kind of, how to run an inclusive recruitment campaign. What do you think are some of the things that that Adecco can do to help our customers really kind of run that inclusive campaign? What's your kind of top 3 pieces of advice?
Top 3.
You can have more.
Let me at least get started. So I want to kind of piggyback a little bit off of what Michelle and Justin were talking about the talent pools and how we attract talent, at different stages of society and where they are. But I think one thing is when we think about, I think a lot of companies, and this is going to bleed into your question, Johnny, but I think a lot of companies are so focused on traditional talent and traditional able-bodied talent in other forms of what they consider to be the best. We miss out on a lot of great untapped opportunity, right? So our subject today is how do we mine untapped talent pools, right? So for example, we work with an organization that specializes in helping to cultivate disabled talent. And so we realized, like Justin, you were mentioning before, we cover a lot of different industries, right? So like warehouse workers, forklift drivers, things of that nature. Even when we talk about call center operations, customer service jobs, other skill jobs, right, in the back office, there's many different opportunities. We don't want to segment people, but there are many opportunities to leverage those type of organizations to cultivate even talent that may be disabled to do some really, really cool jobs. And not just for our clients, but we're also figuring out how do we leverage that same type of flexibility internally within our own colleague base. There's another initiative that we're part of that focuses on how do we target opportunities for minority talent, right? And one of those key things is job credentialing. So let's look at the jobs that we have. Look at how we write job descriptions. Let's look at the language. Let's look at a skills first approach in terms of, are we focusing on a wish list of items that we want for a job, or are we focusing on the necessary skills that's going to be successful for this role to be filled adequately? And so taking these type of approaches and guiding our customers, they want to hear, our opinions on this, right? We are one of the leading talent experts on human capital placement and solutions. So we have to be proactive in these conversations. And I think by us being going through our own journey internally and working on some of these processes and enhancing some of these efforts, it allows us to be more proactive and have these conversations and guide our customers appropriately.
I think that's a really, it's a really important part of the topic, which is that Justin and Michelle have both touched on this, that there's a candidate shortage in this market. And so it's forcing us to look at these untapped talent pools, but it's the right thing to do to look at these untapped talent pools. And even though it's the right thing to do, it also produces amazing outcomes, because to your point, looking at disabled workers, for example, they stay in jobs longer. They actually, their output is as high, if not higher, than their peer group. This is a talent pool that's traditionally been underserviced and underutilized, but actually our data is now showing that this is a talent pool that we should have been focusing on a lot earlier. Switching a little bit on this, Justin, coming to you, Bridget's talked on our role as Adecco, working with partners, bringing thought leadership, consultation to the market, really looking into diving into these untapped talent pools. Where do you think the role of technology, AI, data can help support kind of this? Where can the role of technology and AI help Adecco support our customers?
Yeah, I think the world of AI can help Adecco support our customers in a number of different ways. And I'll give you a couple of examples. We utilize various platforms, various systems, but one in particular called Career Assistant, where it is an AI tool, which is essentially working 24 hours a day. So when our recruiters and our managers are at home sleeping, Career Assistant is working and maybe talking to those candidates who are working a third shift or off hours, or maybe in another time zone that our teams might not be able to get to on a live basis, on a consistent basis. And so by utilizing that AI piece, I think it goes a long way in again, identifying untapped talent that maybe we wouldn't have seen necessarily without the benefit of that AI tool. The other piece is, for us, it's really about providing that omni-channel solution where we get it, right? I know myself as a consumer, I like to buy, paper towels a certain way, sometimes at the grocery store, sometimes at a drugstore, sometimes online, right? And so I think we need to work the same, both for our associates, but also for our clients. And, not every day do they want to have the time or want to pick up the phone and talk to us. Hopefully they do, but not always do they have the time. And so sometimes it's nice to be able to just go online, utilize an AI tool, tell us exactly what you need, and us to be able to move forward and find those individuals for you by utilizing an AI solution.
I think it's sometimes hard for people to take a job interview or apply for a job when they're on a shift and working all day. We see over 50% of our candidates apply after hours, traditional hours. And so having that tool and that technology really supports. So Michelle, last question coming to you. We talked about this from a direct hire perspective, I think. And, obviously in a candidate shortage, you want to retain people. You want to keep people longer. You want to make sure that they stay with you. And we have some really great data when you do the upfront piece on EVP, on all the things that we've talked about around how long candidates stay, particularly from different community backgrounds. What does Adecco's aftercare look like, and how do we ensure that these people stay engaged with the company and want to stay with their employer?
I think that's very critical, and it also bridges in long-term partnerships with the people that we place there, because they're there from a permanent basis. We continue to build that partnership with them. So it starts from the beginning when we came to them to share the candidate what this opportunity entails. So once the candidate starts with the organization, we want to make sure that we follow up, because we stand behind our word on what we presented to them the opportunity would be, and continue to make sure that the companies that we place them at follow through with whether it be the training, the mentorship, the onboarding experience they had, and the succession plan that we shared with them, and make sure that they follow through with everything that was shared with them. I wanted, I'm not deviating, but I wanted to share something in regards to AI that I think is very important. You know, resume writing is so critical now when you have AI being such a significant impact on how large organizations or organizations in general attract talent. So if you are too focused on depending upon artificial intelligence, sometimes organizations are not able to find the right individuals because these recruiting websites score their success against the job per se. So if you partner up AI as the front engine and have true good assessments for soft skill sets, communication, then you will have the result of a good, viable candidate for your opportunity. So in our experience with direct hire, organizations that really leverage the AI piece and partner it up with the backside of the assessments of the candidates have the ability to identify long-standing candidates and employees in the end.
People industry. I think that's really important that companies and we support our customers with the acquisition and retention and support of people. Team, thank you so much. This was a really insightful and wonderful conversation. I think we covered a lot of really pertinent topics around how to attract candidates, how to keep candidates, and how to really look at sourcing methodology with technology into marginalized communities. Diverse talent is really, really imperative in the market at the moment. And finding and tapping into previously underutilized talent pools is equally important. I think that partnering with a wonderful team like we have on the call today can really help with innovation, ideas, and some of the technology that we were talking about that can be used. I wanted to leave you with a quote, which is that great innovation only happens when people aren't afraid to do things differently. And certainly at Adecco, that's a big part of our ethos and what we're trying to do in the US market at the moment. So Michelle, Bridges, and Justin, thank you very much for your insight. Really great conversation. And I look forward to speaking to you guys soon. Thank you very much.